Welcome back to the deep dive. So if you've been following the next generation of high-speed blockchains, you've almost certainly heard the buzz around Monad.
Oh, definitely.
Today, we're diving deep into the engine room of that protocol, the tokenomics of MON, their native asset.
It's a complex one.
It is, and our mission today really is to just cut through all the noise in that documentation.
Right, it's dense.
It's incredibly dense. We're not just going to read you a spreadsheet. We're going to translate it. We need to unpack the supply, the utility, and I think most importantly, the structure of how that initial 100 billion MON is actually going to be released.
Yeah, it's all about context and velocity.
Exactly.
And that context is everything. So before we even start crunching the numbers, let's just confirm what Monad is trying to do. It's a high-performance, EVM-compatible blockchain.
That phrase is key, isn't it? EVM compatible.
It's the whole ball game. They're aiming for huge speed and scale, but they want to stay fully compatible with all the tools, developers, and the users from the Ethereum ecosystem. They're trying to have their cake and eat it too.
And the MON token itself, what's its job?
It's pretty straightforward, a dual-purpose role. It's the gas for the network, so for transaction fees, and it's the backbone of security through staking. To secure the network, you have to hold and stake MON.
And we know exactly when this all goes live, which is super helpful.
We do. The Monad Public Mainnet launch is confirmed for November 24, 2025. And right at that moment, the starting gun fires with a total initial supply of exactly 100 billion MON tokens.
100 billion.
That number, 100 billion, is the denominator for, well, everything we're about to discuss.
100 billion. That is a massive starting figure. Okay, let's unpack where all of this is going right at launch. The allocation breaks down into 6 key buckets. We should probably start with the biggest ones.
Yeah, the distribution strategy tells you a lot about their priorities. And the 2 largest allocations, they just swallow up 2/3 of the entire supply. And that's very intentional. The largest chunk, by a long shot, is for ecosystem development.
How big are we talking?
We're talking 38.5 billion MON. That's a whopping 38.5% of the total supply.
38.5%. Wow, that's not a reserve. That's like a multi-year war chest. That one allocation is bigger than the investor, public sale, and airdrop allocations combined.
Precisely. This huge pool is managed by the Monad Foundation. It's for ecosystem growth, future grants, validator delegations, all the incentives you need to attract users and devs.
Yeah.
But here's the crucial part. This isn't a market dump. Less than 2% of this massive allocation is actually committed or available right away.
Okay, so it's a long-term strategic fund.
Exactly. They plan to deploy it over many, many years to basically buy adoption and talent.
Yeah.
It completely changes the dynamic.
Right. It's not immediate sell pressure. Okay,
Right.
so what's the second biggest slice?
That goes to the insiders, the people who built it all, the team. So the Monad Foundation and Category Labs team members, they get 27 billion MON, which is 27% of the initial supply.
Hold on a second. If we combine those 2, ecosystem development and the team, we're already at over 65% of the supply.
Yep.
All for internal purposes, strategic funds, and the founders themselves. I mean, that sounds like massive initial centralization, doesn't it?
It's a fair question, and it's a critical one to ask. And their defense for it lies entirely in the long-term release mechanism, which we have to get into.
The lockups.
The lockups, yeah.
Yeah.
The whole thing is structured to prevent that early concentration from affecting governance or rewards. They argue that to compete with entrenched players, you need deep pockets and long-term commitment. This is what that represents.
Oh, okay, fair enough. The market tends to focus on what's available now, though. Let's finish mapping out the rest of that 100 billion.
Right. So next up are the early financial backers, the investors. They're allocated 19.7 billion MON, or 19.7%.
So yeah, over 85% is held by the foundation, the team, and the early investors. Now let's talk about what actually went to the public.
Okay, so there are 2 main pools for the public. First, the public sale. Up to 7.5 billion MON, or 7.5%, was available through Coinbase.
At what price point?
At 0.025 cents per token. This was the biggest, most direct opportunity for the public to get in early.
And what if they didn't all sell?
Good question. There was a contingency. Any unsold tokens were slated to go straight back into that big ecosystem development fund.
So nothing was lost, it just went back into the war chest.
Exactly. It ensures every token is either public or set aside for long-term growth.
And then, of course, the airdrop.
Correct. The airdrop was 3.3 billion MON, so 3.3% of the supply. It was successfully claimed by about 230,000 wallets across 5 different categories.
So a smaller piece of the pie for sure, but targeted at active users.
That's the idea.
Okay. And the final slice, just under 4%.
That's a Category Labs treasury. It holds 3.95 billion MON and is reserved specifically for future employee compensation, to hire and keep talent down the line.
All right, so that's the whole map. 100 billion MON, all accounted for. But like you said earlier, the map is meaningless without knowing the flow.
This is the most critical piece of the whole puzzle.
Understanding what's liquid now versus what's locked away.
Exactly. And this is where Monad gets clever. To control that initial velocity and fight reward centralization, they split the supply almost perfectly in half. Unlocked versus locked.
Okay.
At launch, 49.4 billion MON, so 49.4% is unlocked. This is the pool that's immediately usable for transactions and, most importantly, for staking.
And who makes up that unlocked pool?
It's the public sale tokens, the airdrop tokens, and a very small slice of the ecosystem fund that's needed for operations right away. This is your initial liquid supply.
Which means the other half, slightly more actually, is frozen.
Frozen solid. The locked supply is 50.6 billion MON, and that pool contains all the big insider allocations we talked about: the team, the investors, and the treasury.
So they hold most of the tokens, but they can't touch them.
They can't touch them.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting because locking tokens is standard, but they added a twist.
This is the genius of the design. This is the key nugget you need to take away from this whole thing.
Go on.
Unlike a lot of protocols where VCs can stake their locked tokens.
And just hoover up all the early rewards.
Yes. Monad has engineered a specific block. The 50.6 billion locked supply cannot be staked, period. It cannot touch the network staking pool.
Wow. Okay, so even though they hold half the supply, they're deliberately preventing themselves from earning any block rewards, at least for the first year?
Precisely. This forces the initial staking rewards to flow to the public stakers, the airdrop recipients, the public sale buyers. It stops the biggest players from monopolizing the reward pool right away.
That's a huge deal. It really does change the narrative on that 50.6 billion figure. It's not a threat, it's a sign of commitment. But how long is long-term? What are the vesting details?
They are different. The team tokens are the most restricted. They are locked for the entire first year after mainnet launch.
So nothing until November 2026.
Zero liquidity, zero staking.
Yeah.
After that 1-year lock, they start to vest linearly over the next 3 years. It's a 4-year commitment with a hard 1-year stop.
And for the investors?
The investor tokens and the treasury tokens follow a slightly different but just as long schedule, also 4 years, but with what they call a 1-year cliff.
A 1-year cliff. What does that actually mean for an investor holding, billions of these tokens?
It means total darkness for 12 months. For that first year, nothing happens. 0 tokens vest, 0 are liquid, and as we said, 0 can be staked. Then, once you pass that 1-year mark, the tokens start vesting monthly over the next 3 years.
It really forces patience, doesn't it?
Institutional patience.
Yeah.
You're not getting a quick flip.
Yeah.
You're being forced to commit.
So if we track all these different schedules, when does the last of that lock supply finally hit the market?
Based on these schedules, all 50.6 billion locked tokens are expected to be fully unlocked by the end of Q4 2029.
2029. Okay, so that gives us a multi-year predictable supply curve stretching out almost 5 years from launch. That's invaluable context.
It is.
So now that we've got the initial distribution and the controlled velocity, let's look to the future. The supply isn't static. How does it change over time?
Right. This is where we get into the push and pull of inflation versus deflation.
Long-term behavior.
Yep. On the inflationary side, you have to reward validators for securing the chain. So the network mints new tokens.
How many?
Each block mints 25 MON as rewards. That's the cost of security, making sure people are incentivized to run the network.
And if we annualize that, what does 25 MO under block look like over a year?
It works out to roughly 2 billion MLN minted per year, which, relative to the initial 100 billion, is about 2% annual inflation. It's a predictable supply increase.
Okay, 2% inflation. That's a constant pressure. What's the counter mechanism?
The deflationary side. And this is tied directly to adoption. The base transaction fees, they're permanently burned.
Removed from the supply forever.
Gone forever. The idea here is simple. The fee burn is designed to counteract that 2% inflation over time. The net change in supply, whether it grows or shrinks, will depend entirely on how many people actually use Monad.
So if Monad sees huge adoption, lots of transactions, heavy usage, the burn could actually keep pace with or even beat that 2% minting rate.
And potentially make the token deflationary.
Exactly. It creates a direct link between the network's performance and the token's economic stability. If users flock to Monad, the fee burn benefits all the token holders. If usage is low, the supply will just grow by about 2% a year.
A classic crypto balancing act.
For sure, security gets paid for, while activity controls the supply.
Okay, so to recap this deep dive, we've got the 100 billion MON starting supply, heavily weighted toward the ecosystem, team, and investors.
We have the vesting schedules controlling the release of those tokens all the way out to Q4 2029. And most critically, we have that no staking rule on locked tokens to prevent reward centralization.
The takeaway is that it's all structured around control and longevity. That long-term vesting, combined with the block on insider staking, is really the centerpiece. It's designed to force patient participation.
So this deep dive gives you the full context on MON supply. It turns all those percentages into a clear roadmap of who gets what, when they get it, and, why the system is built the way it is.
And now for a final thought for you to consider. Given that the single largest allocation is that huge ecosystem development fund, 38.5%, and the goal is to fund grants and incentives over many years.
Yeah.
How might the Monad Foundation's spending decisions, their long-term strategic choices, influence the adoption rate of this chain over the next decade? This fund is a massive concentration of capital, and how they deploy it will probably determine Monad's success against every other layer one out there.